This is the theme to the podcast. It's inspired by an old TV theme. One of the best I'd ever seen. So here it is, the theme to the podcast. What does Chris think?
About a list of favorite movies. Well, I'm at it again. I bet you're starting to wonder if this podcast is just going to be me listing why I like what I like about the movies I like. And though it could be, the end is nigh. For this episode, I'm going to cheat just a little. I'm going to count a trilogy as one. If I were only to include my favorite of the three, I feel like I would undercut one of the other ones. However, by doing it this way, I'm giving one stature that it doesn't quite deserve. But I think it's the better of the two paths. So, what movie trilogy am I talking about? It's funny how a story set a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away can feel so closely linked to how we look at our own personal histories, the patterns we repeat, and the arcs we choose to follow. I'm speaking of Star Wars, of course, specifically the original trilogy. We've lived with Star Wars for so long, it's been dissected, merchandised, and retooled into a state of near exhaustion that it's easy to lose sight of the actual craft that started the fire. But if you strip away the plastic lunchboxes, the Lego Fortnite partnerships, and the billion-dollar acquisitions, you're left with a piece of storytelling that, at its heart, is remarkably honest about what it means to grow up. Let's sit down, look at these three films not as a hyper-inflated cultural icon, but for what they actually are. A great example of clean, mythological storytelling, and a blueprint for how characters can grow in ways they never thought possible, across the backdrop of a galactic civil war. The original trilogy works because it doesn't try to be hard science fiction. It's a space opera, sure, but it's really a Western with better lighting. It's more science fantasy than science fiction. George Lucas understood something that a lot of modern storytellers miss. The audience doesn't care about the physics of the warp drive or interstellar travel if they don't care about the person pulling the lever or pressing the button. He gave us a galaxy that looked lived in. It was greasy, dented, and slightly out of date. It felt real because it looked like it needed a good cleaning and a nice tune-up. What makes New Hope, or just Star Wars for those of us who remember a day before subtitles, work so beautifully is it's the economy of storytelling. It doesn't waste time explaining the political infrastructure of the Galactic Senate or the socioeconomic impact of the spice mining on Kessel. It didn't dump 20 pages of lore on you at the first 10 minutes. It showed you a couple of droids in a desert and let you figure out the stakes by how they interacted and reacted to the world around them. It then gives you a boy, a farm, and a sunset. Man, that iconic shot of Luke Skywalker staring out to the twin suns of Tatooine works because it's a universal human feeling. We've all been stuck in our own version of a small town, whether that's a desert planet or a sawmill in a quiet corner of the map, dreaming of a horizon we aren't sure we'll ever reach. Luke starts as the ultimate greenhorn. He's whiny, he's impatient, and he's looking for an adventure without understanding the costs. His arc in the first film is about the transition from a passive dreamer to an active participant. When his aunt and uncle are killed, the choice is made for him. He has to leave the Little Moisture farm and enter the universe, stepping into a larger world. By the time he's at the trench of the Death Star, turning off his targeting computer isn't just a cool trick. It's an act of pure, unadulterated faith in something bigger than himself. Now, if Luke is the heart, Han is the cynical brain that keeps the movie from slipping into overly sentimental territory. He's the guy who claims he's only in it for the money, practicing a classic brand of shallow certainty to protect himself from getting hurt. His pivot at the end, coming back out of the sun to clear the TIE fighters off Luke's tail, is one of the most satisfying character beats in cinema. Why? Not because of the Yahoo, it's because it's earned. He didn't change his entire philosophy overnight. He just allowed himself to care about someone else for 5 minutes. And then lastly, we have Leia. She's the only actual adult in the room for most of the movie. While the boys are fumbling around in the prison halls, she's the one taking advantage of her own rescue. She watches her entire home planet vaporized and then barely has any time to grieve before she's coordinating a military rebellion. She's standing up there next to gray-headed generals and former senators. She's the one that commands the room. Now, if A New Hope is about the excitement of leaving home, then Empire Strikes Back is about the crushing weight of reality hitting you square in the jaw. It's widely regarded as the best of the trilogy, and honestly, it deserves the hype. It takes every trope established in the first film and systematically subverts it. There's a beautiful, dark, understated humor to Empire. It's a movie where the narrative splits, allowing the characters to breathe and grow in isolation. You have Han and Leia bickering their way through an asteroid field, a classic screwball comedy setup, and then there's Luke stuck in a swamp learning philosophy from a green puppet. By the way, that green puppet introducing a Jedi Master as a puppet who talks in riddles, hits things with his cane, was brilliant. It subverted the wise old man trope by making him annoying first. It forced Luke and the audience to look past the exterior. This is where Luke's real education begins. In a cave on Dagobah, he's faced with an illusion of Vader. He cuts his head off and watches the mask shatter to reveal Luke's own face. It's a stunning piece of visual storytelling that explains exactly why his journey is so dangerous. His failure to lift the X-Wing, followed by his premature departure to save his friends in Cloud City, shows a man still ruled by his impatience. He acts out of protective instinct, sure, but without the discipline to back it up. And he pays for it with a severed hand and a shattered worldview. As for Han and Leia, their arc here is a great example in human details and timing. The romance works because it's built on friction. Han's "I know," right before he goes into carbonite, is legendary precisely because it avoids the standard fluffy Hollywood scripts. It's honest and slightly mischievous and perfectly aligned with who he is at his core. What I appreciate most about Empire is the willingness to challenge the perceived story beats. Luke thinks he's ready to be a Jedi because he can flip around and lift some rocks. Yoda spends the entire second act telling him that physical stuff doesn't matter. Adventure and excitement, a Jedi craves not these things, is a direct critique of the trend thinking that assumes heroism is just about winning fights. We all know the one line, delivered by Vader in Cloud City, but think about the sheer guts it took to end a blockbuster movie on that note. The hero loses his hand, his friend is frozen in carbonite, and he finds out the truth that shatters his worldview. It's a total collapse of the status quo. For this film, Lucas gave the director's chair to Irvin Kershner, who brought a maturity to the directing that felt different from Lucas's more clinical style. The lighting was moodier, the dialogue was sharper, and the stakes felt deeply personal. It's the best of the three because it's the most human. It's about the realization that being the chosen one doesn't mean you won't get hurt. In fact, it usually means you'll get hurt more than anyone else. Now this brings us to the runt of the litter, Return of the Jedi. It's a flawed movie. It's kind of got a split personality. The first act at Jabba's palace feels like an old school monster movie. The second act, on Endor, slips kind of into a strange toy commercial aesthetic with the Ewoks. Then the final act, in the Emperor's throne room, is some of the finest dramatic tension ever put on celluloid. It's a mixed bag, the movie is, but when it works, it reaches heights the other two films can't quite touch. The structure, that's a bit repetitive. We're dealing with a second Death Star, which feels like Lucas kind of running out of structural options, but the emotional undertones carries it through. There's more heart present in the final confrontation between Luke and Vader and the Emperor than almost any other sci-fi film. Of course, the Ewoks get a bad rap, but to be fair, if you look past the cuddly exterior, they're essentially a tribal insurgency using primitive traps to dismantle a mechanized industrial empire. It's an analogy straight out of the 20th century history, showing that systems built entirely on cold, calculated power often have massive blind spots when it comes to the raw, unpredictable nature of people fighting for their homes. In this movie, Luke's arc feels like a satisfying journey as he enters Jabba's palace dressed in black, looking dangerous, balanced, and composed. He isn't the whiny kid from Tatooine anymore. The real triumph of his arc isn't that he beats Darth Vader in a duel, it's that he tosses his lightsaber away and stops fighting. When he stands in front of the Emperor and says, "I'm a Jedi, like my father before me," he wins by refusing to play the game on the villain's terms. He chooses vulnerability over dominance, and that's the exact moment that he saves Darth Vader's soul. Speaking of Vader, his arc in this film is the true anchor of the trilogy. He spends 3 movies as this terrifying embodiment of systematic cruelty, an island unto himself, who destroyed everything he was ever involved with. Yet, watching Luke suffer under the Emperor's lightning triggers a deep, quiet frustration that can't be anymore. His decision to throw the Emperor down the reactor shaft is a violent but necessary extraction from his own dark history. When he asks Luke to remove his mask so he can look upon him with his own eyes, it's a beautiful and tragic moment. As for the lovers, Han and Leia, Han is officially integrated into the leadership of the rebellion, proving he's no longer just looking out for number 1. Leia discovers her heritage and handles that revelation with her usual calm exterior, and the two of them finally find a stable groove amidst the chaos. Now, why did I choose to cheat and combine 3 into 1 pick? I've always struggled with a lot of hard sci-fi. There's a certain brand of genre writing that gets me so bogged down in the how that it forgets the why. If I'm reading a story and I have to stop every 3 pages to look up a diagram of a theoretical particle engine, I check out. Star Wars chose a different path. Its used universe sci-fi is about people who are tired, who are struggling under the weight of a bureaucracy that they can't control, and who are struggling under the weight of a bureaucracy they can't control, and who are just trying to find a bit of agency in a massive, uncaring system. I like it because it's grounded in character motives I actually recognize. Han Solo isn't a hero because he wants to save the galaxy. He's a hero because he eventually realizes he can't just keep looking out for himself. And that's a real arc. The industry changed overnight. Suddenly, everyone wanted a tentpole franchise. But the real legacy isn't the business model. It's the way it changed how we see movies. It turned film-going into a communal event. It created a shared vocabulary. It proved that high-concept fantasy could be taken seriously if the production value matched the ambition. It paved the way for every major franchise we see today, for better or for worse. It gave us myth for the modern age. We don't have many stories that cross every culture and generation boundary, but Star Wars is one of them. My grandfather could watch this and understand the stakes as clearly as my kids do. When you step back and you look at the original Star Wars trilogy as a complete piece of work, you realize why it has endured, while thousands of imitators have faded into obscurity. It's not because the spaceships, the lightsabers, though those elements are undeniably brilliant. It's because the story is built on a foundation of practical wisdom and motivating truth. It's a trilogy about families, the scars we inherit, and the hard choices we have to make to avoid repeating the mistakes of the people who came before us. It balances the grand operatic scale of galactic civil war with the deeply personal human details. Endings always come too fast. They come too fast and pass too slow. The original trilogy hits its perfect ending that doesn't give us hollow, empty positivity. The victory is celebrated around campfires and in cities, but the road to get there was paved with loss, sacrifice, and a lot of broken things. It's a real conversation about growth, identity, and the shades of gray we have to navigate to find what's real. That's what makes it timeless. It's smart without being arrogant, warm without being soft, and it leaves you with the distinct feeling that even in a galaxy far, far away, the human heart is still the only thing that actually matters in the end. But for now, I'm Chris, And this is what I thought.